The funniest farmer in town. Mr. Cornhead was a farmer, but he wasn't just any farmer. He was known far and wide for his infectious laughter and his love for corn. He had a big smile and a funny laugh. He loved his cornfield. Every morning he would walk through his fields, greeting each corn plant as if it were an old friend. It was the biggest and best in town. People would come from miles around just to see his magnificent cornfield and hear his hearty laugh echoing through the rows of corn. One sunny morning, Mr. Cornhead drove his tractor into the field. The sun was shining brightly and the birds were singing. It was a perfect day for farming. He wanted to see how much his corn had grown. Each stalk seemed taller and greener than the day before. He marveled at the beauty of his work. Mr. Cornhead was very proud of his corn. He had worked hard to cultivate the best corn in the region, and it showed. He drove deeper and deeper, humming a happy tune. The melody was as cheerful as his spirit, and it seemed to make the corn sway in rhythm. Mr. Cornhead wasn't worried, not one bit. He knew his cornfield like the back of his hand, every twist and turn, every nook and cranny. Or so he thought. As he ventured further, he began to notice things looked a bit different. Was he lost in his own cornfield? The thought made him chuckle. After all, how could the funniest farmer in town get lost in his own field? Suddenly the tractor stopped. It was stuck. The wheels were buried deep in the thick, gooey mud, making it impossible to move forward. The wheels spun and spun, but the tractor wouldn't budge. It was as if the mud had a firm grip on the tires, refusing to let go. Mr. Cornhead scratched his head. He had been in tricky situations before, but this one seemed particularly challenging. He chuckled. Looks like I'm in a bit of a pickle. Despite the situation, he couldn't help but find some humor in it. He tried pushing the tractor. He put all his strength into it, hoping the extra force would help dislodge the wheels. He tried pulling the tractor. He grabbed onto the front and pulled with all his might, but the tractor remained stuck. But the tractor wouldn't move. It was as if the mud had turned into quicksand, trapping the tractor in place. Mr. Cornhead started to laugh. The absurdity of the situation was too much to handle without a chuckle. "This is quite a predicament," he said. He wasn't worried, though. He had faced worse and always found a way out. Mr. Cornhead was sure he could get himself out of this mess. He always did. With determination in his eyes, he began to think of a plan. He knew that with a bit of creativity and effort, he would soon be back on track. The clouds grew dark, rain started to fall. "Oh dear," said Mr. Cornhead. "This might make things a little messy." People from town saw Mr. Cornhead stuck in his field. "Do you need help?" they called. "We can get a tow truck." "No, thank you," shouted Mr. Cornhead. "I have a plan." He winked, even though they couldn't see him through the rain. Mud makes the best playground. The rain stopped, leaving behind a soggy, muddy mess. The cornfield was a mud pit. Puddles of water glistened in the sunlight, and the ground was soft and squishy. Mr. Cornhead put on his boots, ready to tackle the muddy challenge ahead. He knew exactly what to do. With a determined look on his face, he prepared for the adventure. He climbed back into his trusty tractor, his faithful companion in many muddy escapades. He took a deep breath, feeling the fresh, earthy scent of the wet soil, and revved the engine. Mud splashed everywhere as the tractor lurched forward, creating a symphony of squelching sounds. Mr. Cornhead was a mud-splattered mess, but he was moving. His clothes were soaked, and his face was speckled with mud. He steered the tractor through the mud, leaving deep tracks behind him. He made figure eights and zigzags, turning the muddy field into his personal playground. Mr. Cornhead was having a ball. The mud, the tractor, and the open field brought out the child in him, making it a day to remember. Home sweet, muddy home. Finally, Mr. Cornhead drove out of the cornfield. He was covered head to toe in thick mud. His tractor was a muddy mess, but Mr. Cornhead was laughing. "Well," he said with a grin, "that was fun. I should get stuck more often." And with a wave, he drove off towards home, leaving a trail of muddy tire tracks behind him. Please like, subscribe, and help promote the community channel Storytime.